Wow. Let me read that last bit again. You'll think this is the beginning of some meaningful mentorship, but it won't be. In fact, Dante won't say another word to you for the rest of the summer, not even when you ask him a direct question. But over time, you'll begin to see the power of his silence, and surprisingly, it will remind you of your old man's silence. A few months into your ninth grade season, you'll actually spot Dante in the stands at one of your games. He'll be alone eating popcorn, watching. You'll be the starting point guard on the varsity squad, which is pretty legit for a freshman. And you'll be having your best game of the young season. You'll wave as you jog past him at halftime, but he won't wave back. He'll continue eating his popcorn. After the game, you'll climb the packed bleachers looking for him, but he'll already be gone. Your old man will be there, though. And on the drive back to your apartment that night, you'll realize something important. Your old man is always there, and he always has been. And so what if he doesn't say anything about how many points you just scored? How many assists? So what if he turns on his radio news show instead of breaking down the big win? Maybe words aren't what's important. Maybe words would just steal away your freedom to think for yourself. This part is so fascinating. I'm wondering about the bit where Dante comes to the narrator's fifth grade games. It feels important. And it's got me thinking that he's invested in our boy. He cares about him, but he still won't say it. We see it through his actions. What are you thinking about Pop coming to the games too, even though he's always so stern with the kid? There's one more chapter in this story. I'm going to read straight through to the end. I'll give you one tip here that you can go back to the stories you are reading as well. It used to be that stories you read ended in some kind of dramatic resolution. The character's problem is solved, and often the character learns a clear lesson and changes in dramatic ways. But the kind of stories you're reading now will be more subtle. Something does usually change for the character, but the change may be hard to detect, and you have to be really alert to small details that suggest something has changed. Often, I pay attention to the kinds of things a character says and does. By the end, and I compare those to the things he said and did at the beginning. What you did this summer. Your first class on your first day of ninth grade will be English with Mr. Hoy. Shuffle into the room with everyone else, locate the desk with your name tag, and take a seat. After Mr. Hoy goes around the room, having everyone introduce themselves, he'll ask the class to pull out a sheet of paper, and he'll give you the first of 17,000 writing prompts he'll assign over the course of the semester. This one's easy, he'll say. All I want you to do is to describe one thing you did this summer and one thing you learned. You have 15 minutes. Go. You'll moan and groan with everyone else, but once you start writing, the summer will come pouring out. You'll write about sleeping in the VW bug and the cop knocking on the window, and all the vendors you passed on the long walk, and the way the old gym walls actually creaked on especially hot days, and how the second half of the summer you got in all the games and the guys started calling you Mexican buckets and fighting over who had to guard you. But the time you spent on the actual court, you'll realize, was nowhere near as important as the time you spent in the bleachers. And you'll devote all your remaining time to describing one seemingly insignificant moment. During your last week at the gym, Slim offered to buy you a hot dog and Coke for lunch. He claimed he was tired of watching you scoop handfuls of generic granola into your mouth every day. You're a growing boy, man. You need a balanced diet. Now let's go get you a hot dog and a Coke. No thanks, you told him. He looked at you surprised. You sure? My treat. Nah, I'm good, you said, but thanks. All right, he said, shrugging. I guess you must really like that granola. And then he walked away. Truth was, you turned him down that day because you knew he didn't have any money. He lost his security guard job at the start of the summer. His shoes were falling apart, and you heard he's been evicted from his apartment. Saying no, you thought, was the right thing to do. But on the car ride home that afternoon, your pop shook his head in disappointment. He turned down his news show for the first time all summer. When a man with nothing offers to give you something, he said, you take it. You do? Always. Why? He glanced at you as he merged onto the freeway. You just do, all right? At the time, it didn't make much sense. You saved Slim money. But as you write, you'll begin to see it differently. And you'll end the assignment by saying, what I learned is that when a man who stays mostly quiet offers you advice, you take it. You just do, all right? Trust me. What are you thinking, readers? Did you notice any kind of change by the ending? Are you seeing any new parts or thinking? Matt's a very subtle writer, so think through any small details or phrases and take a minute to pause the video and jot your thinking in your reading notebook. Did you write about the end of the story? I'm fascinated by it too, but I want to channel you to do something that I think is really important to do in any book that you read. Can you push yourself to think about how earlier things in the story fit with or lead up to the end, especially in terms of our relationship with characters? Let's do some thinking together about what Matt possibly did to develop our relationship with Dante. To do this, I'm going to suggest we think about earlier parts about Dante and about how they fit with this ending of the story. You'll want to have a copy of the text in front of you. On this sheet are some moments with Dante. Let's call them window moments because of the way they might offer a window into this character. Will you read a couple of these moments and then think about the different work that each of these moments is doing? How does Matt lead you to think or feel about Dante in one moment and in the next? Try to think about each moment as a distinct dot on the timeline of your evolving relationship with Dante. Take a few minutes to do this work and pause the video while you are jotting your thinking in your reading notebook. So, did you notice in the first bit that Dante is presented as a kind of mythic basketball player? Our narrator is mesmerized by him. Is that your sense? I'm thinking about the detail that says he's the only guy in the gym who's never said a word to you. It seems Matt is maybe suggesting that Dante is not only powerful, he also seems to ignore the narrator. Why might Matt have Dante not speak to our boy in this moment? And why might it be significant that Dante seems sort of mythic? It helps to think, perhaps, or could it be that? Go ahead and pause and jot your thinking in your reading notebook. Readers, have you considered that Matt may have deliberately made Dante into this mythic character so Dante's harshness would feel all the more significant to the narrator and to us? And his silence means that when he finally does say something, when he says, go back to the barrio, it feels really personal. So, what about the second part? Why does the author have Dante tell our narrator to go home? We know Dante better now, so what might he really be doing here? We know that Dante seems really harsh, and it's especially brutal because our boy looks up to him. But let's think harder here. My question is, knowing what you know about the ending of the story, about what you eventually learn about Dante, why do you think Matt had Dante acting so harshly here? That's an important mystery, right? Go ahead and pause the video and jot your thinking about that. Readers, were you thinking that maybe Dante's actions were deliberate? And how does that fit with the final passage? When I read this part with the ending in mind, I had a whole different perspective on it. I'm wondering if that happened to you too. Am I right that what many of us might be thinking is that Matt embeds these clues about Dante, but we see the scene through the character's perspective, that we sort of miss what may really be happening? I'm going to go further and say I think maybe Dante hopes our boy will stand up for himself. Do you see how we did that, readers? The way Matt De La Pena wrote this character, each of the different parts of the story does different work. The boy experiences Dante in different ways. First, as a mythic character, then as someone who is surprisingly mean, then the confusing part when Dante gave up his spot to let the kid play, but was still gruff. And then the fourth moment when Dante is overtly caring, but still in a quiet way. And the way the story goes for us, we end up experiencing Dante in each of those different ways too. If you ask yourself, what's the journey that Matt creates for us as we get to know this character? It's a roller coaster ride, isn't it? What was his goal in taking us on this journey? What was he trying to get us to experience? Take a few minutes to jot your thinking in your reading notebook, then go back to the platform for the last video in this read aloud, part 3.